Different kinds of books require doing different activities to learn from them. That's why it's worth taking a few minutes to understand the kind of book that you're dealing with, not for the sake of putting it into a bucket, but because the kind of book you're dealing with has implications for how you are going to go about learning with that book. And here I'm talking about nonfiction books, particularly expository books that aim at teaching you something more or less directly. So we're not talking about literature and plays and all that kind of stuff. In all cases, the book is playing the role of an absent teacher, but how that role is being played depends a little bit. The first category of books that I want to talk about are books that teach you skills. You can call this a practical book if you want. I'm just going to call it a skill book. This book, You Can Draw in 30 Days, is a skill book. How you go about learning from a book like this, I think, is fairly easy to understand. But just for the sake of analysis, I want to compare three different situations. In the first situation, consider what you learn from just reading the book and maybe thinking about it a little bit. In the second situation, consider what you get out of the book from just practicing the skill that the book is trying to teach, but without reading the book. You're just practicing the skill. It's as if you don't have the book at all. And in the third situation, consider what happens when you practice under the guidance of the book. That is, you combine reading and practice together. Now, practice without reading would improve your skill somewhat, I imagine, but it's not terribly efficient and it won't get you very far, I assume, because that's part of the reason why you got a book like this in the first place. But I would expect that reading without practicing would improve your skill even less. There's no actual practice going on, so there's no reason to believe that your skill would improve. Even if you spent a lot of time reading the book closely and thinking about what you read, you're still not going to get any better at drawing. Rather, the value of the book only comes about when you combine reading and practice together, where you read and practice and read and practice and read and practice. Here's another example of this kind of book: How to Automate the Boring Stuff, Programming with Python for Absolute Beginners. If you're not actually writing the programs that the author talks about, you're missing a huge part of the learning process. In fact, I don't even think it makes sense to read the book if you're not also writing Python programs as you go through the book and read it. What about a recipe book? Well, some books do give guidance on building cooking skills, so they'll tell you how to cut an onion or something, or they'll give you a template for making soups of any kind. But often I think in practice, recipe books function more like reference books. It's like a small dictionary of different recipes that you can try. Still, it's like the other books in the skill building bucket because you learn a lot more by reading and cooking together than you do if you just read or cooked alone. What about a book like this? This is a famous book about psychology and design. Designing and drawing are both skills. Is this book like the drawing book we just looked at? They are similar, but not exactly the same. There is some advice here about how to design things, but there aren't design exercises. The author doesn't tell us to try to design a computer interface or to design a teapot. Rather, he's trying to give us a way to think about design. Maybe if we're a designer, the advice would help us to make designed products that don't suck. Maybe if we are a consumer of designed products, we get to understand more deeply the nature of designed products and appreciate good design and be maybe even more annoyed with bad design than we otherwise would be. Along the way, there's a fair amount to learn about psychology and how humans perceive things and interact in the world. Getting practice at applying the ideas in the book will definitely help you learn from it, whether that is designing objects yourself or analyzing the design of objects that other people have created. But in general, the book doesn't give us quite these kinds of exercises that we see in the drawing book, although there are some examples where he shows an interface or shows some kind of thing in the book and says, hey, what do you observe about this thing? What's going right about it? What's going wrong about it? So those are exercise or practice opportunities. But in general, we have to apply the principles and the lessons and examples to the work that we're doing or the lives that we're leading. In other words, the practice that is going to enhance our understanding of the material and our skill at designing or our skill at analyzing designs comes from the reader, right? It's our own experiences that we have to apply the lessons in the book to. And that is, of course, in addition to the thinking that we have to do while we're reading. What about a book like this? This is a history of the creationism movement. It's not like drawing or designing or programming. It's a bunch of things that happened. How we learn from this kind of book is going to depend on our goals and our interests. With a drawing book, all readers are going to be learning basically the same set of skills. There's going to be variation, of course, of what we get out of the book, but the basic skill is the same. With a book like this, however, different readers might get different things out of it. You might be particularly interested in the growth of creationist movements, or perhaps the reasoning that creationists use, or perhaps the internal disagreements that occur between different kinds of creationists. Or maybe you're just looking for some background information to get some context because you're doing some work that relates to the creationism movement in some way. Now, even more so than the design of everyday things, this book on creationism has no exercises. There are no explicit questions to answer. This is not a book that's aimed at teaching you a skill. To get value out of a book like this, you've just got two tools: reading and thinking. Now, to aid your thinking, you might do something like what I talked about in a previous video when I was trying to learn from a history book. You can see me taking notes and organizing the material, but that's all in service of me thinking about what I'm reading, trying to make sense of it, trying to get out of it what I wanted to get out of it. So just with these 3 books, we can build a spectrum. The book on drawing only helps us to learn when we actually practice the exercises in the book. And it's teaching roughly the same skill to everyone who reads it. Now, no doubt we could practice other things and get better at drawing too, but the book is designed with those exercises in mind and presumes that you are going through the exercises as you read the book. The history book is on the other side of the spectrum. There are no exercises to practice. It's a different kind of engagement that we have to do to get something out of that book, and readers might walk away with different lessons from the same book. Every book, of course, is going to introduce new ideas, but books closer to this side of the spectrum focus more heavily on developing your skills, while books on the other side focus more heavily on developing your understanding of something. What about a textbook like this one? This kind of book requires both kinds of work. It's teaching a lot of new concepts, and your understanding of physics will grow as you work your way through it, but it's also interested in teaching you skills. The skill of applying physics principles and ideas and equations to different kinds of questions. With a book on drawing, I'm not racking my brain thinking, how can I possibly make sense of this? Rather, I'm thinking, how can I get the best practice I can with the help of the book? And with the history book, I'm not thinking, how can I best practice history, or how can I practice creationism, right? No, I'm thinking, how can I make sense of what I'm reading? With a physics book here, I have to ask both kinds of questions. I have to ask, how can I make sense of what I'm reading? And I actually have to get practice at solving physics problems. And these two activities complement each other. The sense-making helps with the problem solving, and the problem solving helps with the sense making. So if you're going to spend some time to learn from a book, it's worth taking a few moments to consider how the book is going to drive learning forward. What kinds of activities will you be doing with the book that will drive your learning forward? Maybe the book you're reading will be like one of the books we talked about, or maybe it will require an entirely different approach. If you want to improve your learning skills and you like videos like this, I have a ton more videos on my learning community, something like 80 videos there now, and I post more videos there regularly. I talk about a lot of big ideas in learning, so I talk about cognitive load and metacognition and conceptual change and feedback and a bunch of other stuff. But I also have lots of material there on how to read effectively, how to grow skills. You can watch me read textbooks. I interview experts on the learning processes in their field. We have some great community members and interesting discussions about different questions in studying and learning. And at the moment I am making this video, it is only $12 to join for a month, and now I really feel like one of those TV advertisers. There is no obligation. You can leave and come back at any time. Anyhow, if you want more information, there's more information in a pinned comment below. I hope the video was helpful. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.